Take a look at this map of Tartary, a vast and loosely defined region in Eurasia, which I covered in detail in a video last month. Within the region, one note reads, Argon. Once there was in Asia a Christian kingdom known to Prester John, and D. Thomas founded this city in this place. Let's go to raremaps.com, an online shop specializing in antique maps, but it's also a great resource for studying old maps and historical mysteries. If we search the name Prester John, we find dozens of maps depicting his kingdom. These maps show his realm with enough detail to clearly mark the location of this mysterious Christian ruler's domain. But who was this Prester John? And if he once ruled such a vast empire, why do we not hear much about him today? This video will cover the story of Prester John, as well as these maps. The legend of Prester John began in the early 12th century, linked to reports by two Christian leaders from India who were said to have traveled to Europe. They reportedly spoke of a distant Christian ruler later identified as Prester John. In 1145, the German chronicler Otto of Freising reported meeting Hugh, Bishop of Jabla, who was seeking aid from the west after the siege of Edessa. Hugh told Otto and Pope Eugene III about Prester John, a Nestorian Christian priest-king who had won a great battle in Ecbatana and intended to rescue Jerusalem, but was forced to turn back by the Tigris River. Prester John was described as extremely wealthy, with an emerald scepter and descended from the three Magi. The legend of Prester John gained significant traction in 1165 when a letter purportedly written by him began circulating in Europe. Addressed to Byzantine Emperor Manuel I Comnenus, the letter described Prester John as a powerful Christian king ruling a utopian and immensely wealthy kingdom. The kingdom was portrayed as a paradise filled with gold, jewels, rivers of precious stones, mythical creatures like unicorns and giants, and as the home of the fountain of youth. It was depicted as a stronghold of Christian virtue, free from strife of the outside world, with perfect justice and peace. The letter also claimed that Prester John commanded vast, invincible armies and expressed his desire to ally with Christian Europe in defending Christendom. This idea of a powerful Christian ally captivated Europe imaginations, particularly during the Crusades, as they sought to establish Christian control over the Holy Land. At this time, Prester John's kingdom was believed to be in India, based on the previously mentioned second-hand reports and his association with the Apostle Thomas, who was said to have established a Christian community there. And because the letter described a vast, prosperous kingdom filled with riches and mythical creatures, which matched the European imagination of India at the time, it strengthened the connection. However, it would begin to shift to other locations as European geographical knowledge expanded. Another event also played a role in the shifting location. In the 13th century, as the Mongol Empire expanded, Europeans speculated that the Mongols might be connected to the legendary Prester John. Some even believed Genghis Khan could be Prester John or his descendant. Reports of Mongol victories over Islamic forces initially seemed to confirm this possibility, as they aligned with European hopes of finding a Christian ally who could attack Muslim powers from the east, while Europeans fought from the west. The timing made the Mongols appear as a divine intervention against a common enemy. One figure linked to the legend was Togrul, a mentor to Genghis Khan and leader of the Karaites, a Nestorian Christian tribe in Central Asia. Togrul's Christian background and alliance with Genghis Khan caused some Europeans to conflate him with Prester John. Further confusion arose when reports circulated of a King David, thought to be Prester John's descendant, defeating Muslim forces in Persia. These stories were likely inspired by Genghis Khan's campaigns, but the lack of accurate information blurred the lines between myth and reality. These hopes were dashed as more reliable reports reached Europe. Envoys and missionaries sent to the Mongol courts discovered that, while some Mongol leaders were tolerant of Christianity and even had Nestorian Christian wives, the Mongols themselves practiced a mix of shamanism and other local beliefs. This shattered the illusion that they were a Christian nation. The brutal methods of Mongol conquest further undermined the idea that they were aligned with European Christian values. Despite this, European missionaries and envoys continued to visit the Mongols. Their missions, though unsuccessful in locating Prester John or his descendants, greatly expanded European knowledge of Asia, including its cultures, religions, and political systems. This increased understanding marked the beginning of a shift in European perceptions of the East. But this didn't mean the belief in Prester John and his kingdom was over. European Christians were still hopeful. By the 15th century, European explorers began venturing down the coast of Africa, and the location of Prester John's kingdom shifted in popular imagination to Ethiopia. Ethiopia, with its Christian tradition dating back to at least the 4th century, had remained largely isolated from the broader Christian world. The Portuguese, in particular, became interested in Ethiopia during their exploration of the Indian Ocean, viewing the Ethiopian emperors of the Solomonic dynasty as potential candidates for the identity of Prester John. In 1487, King John II of Portugal sent a man on an expedition to explore both India and Ethiopia. He reached Ethiopia in 1493 and confirmed the existence of a Christian kingdom, but it didn't match the fantastical descriptions of Prester John's realm. Despite this, Ethiopia continued to intrigue Europeans. Upon arriving in Ethiopia, the diplomat could not leave. The Ethiopian emperor at the time welcomed him warmly, but essentially kept him as a guest for the rest of his life. Ethiopia had a policy of isolating itself from the outside world, and foreign visitors, especially those of political importance, were often not allowed to leave. The diplomat then lived in Ethiopia for the rest of his life, marrying an Ethiopian woman, raising a family, and even serving in the Ethiopian court as an advisor. He was still alive when a formal Portuguese diplomatic mission arrived in 1520. Upon first seeing the group, he broke into tears, as it had been 40 years since last seeing his fellow countrymen. This diplomatic mission was warmly received by the emperor, though it was clear that Ethiopia was not the mythical kingdom of Prester John. The search for Prester John helped establish stronger relations between Portugal and Ethiopia. The two nations forged a strategic alliance, particularly in their struggles against the Ottomans and the Sultanate of Adal. But this is where the belief in Prester John began to fade away. The legend persisted in literature and folklore for a time, but by the 17th century it was largely dismissed as a medieval myth born out of Europe's limited knowledge of the world beyond its borders. The story of Prester John is a fascinating window into how myths and legends shaped European exploration and understanding of the world. From its origins in the 12th century to its evolution across Asia and Africa, the legend reveals the hopes, misunderstandings, and ambitions of medieval Europe. It also demonstrates how maps were not just tools for navigation, but also canvases for imagination, blending known geography with the mysterious and mythical. Even as the legend faded, the search for Prester John contributed to Europeans' expanding knowledge of distant lands and cultures. It spurred journeys that connected continents and created alliances, proving that even myths can have tangible impacts on history. Thank you RareMaps.com for supporting this video. RareMaps.com is an online antique map shop with over 10,000 antique maps in their inventory. These are original maps, not modern reprints. Most of the maps you saw in this video are actually for sale on their website right now. While the rarest and most sought after maps can be a little pricey, many are for sale for less than $200. This interesting 1636 map, priced at just under $400, references Prester John and has a note that reads, Tartary, more Christians than under the Latin Church. Again, that's RareMaps.com. And that's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you all for watching.